Every night, King Alaric Vane kissed his queen, as though the morning might steal her from him. And every morning, it did. The first time it happened, Queen Elara woke beneath a silver blade. The edge rested against the hollow of her throat, cold enough to make her breath catch. Dawn had barely touched the windows. The royal chamber remained wrapped in blue darkness, the dying fire casting weak shadows over the bed. Alaric stood above her, barefoot, bare-chested, and trembling with restrained violence. "Who are you?" Elara stared at the man who had held her only hours before. His dark hair fell across his forehead. The scar above his left brow was the same one she had kissed before sleep. The gold wedding band remained on his hand. Even the faint crescent-shaped mark beneath his ribs was familiar to her. But his eyes were empty. Not cruel. Not yet. Just empty. "Alaric," she whispered. The blade pressed closer. "How do you know my name?" Her heart fractured so quietly that no one else could have heard it. Outside the chamber doors, royal guards shouted in alarm. Heavy fists struck the wood. "Your Majesty, open the doors." A low growl rose from the foot of the bed. Nox, the king's massive black wolf, stood with his silver eyes fixed on Alaric. His fur bristled. His teeth gleamed in the darkness. Alaric turned sharply. "Nox, stand down." The wolf did not obey. Instead, he moved between the sword and Elara, placing his enormous body against the side of the bed. Alaric's face hardened. "You defend an intruder?" Nox growled louder. Elara slowly raised one hand. "Look at your ring." His gaze flicked toward the gold band. "There is another on my hand." He looked. Her ring matched his. For one impossible second, confusion passed across his face. Then he caught her wrist and dragged her from the bed. She struck the floor hard enough to bruise her knee. The chamber doors burst open. Guards flooded inside, followed by Lord Malrek, the royal keeper of magic. Malrek wore black robes embroidered with silver runes. His long gray hair framed a narrow face that always seemed carved from stone. He stopped when he saw Elara on the floor, and Alaric holding a sword to her neck. His expression changed quickly. Too quickly. "Your Majesty," Malrek said. "Lower the blade." Alaric did not move. "Tell me who she is." Silence fell. Captain Rowan, commander of the Royal Guard, looked at Elara with horror. Malrek took one careful step forward. "She is Queen Elara Vane." Alaric laughed once. There was no amusement in it. "I have no queen." Elara would remember those words for the rest of her life. They did not sound like anger. They sounded like truth. The truth of a man whose heart had been emptied overnight. Malrek eventually convinced Alaric to release her. The king did not apologize. He watched as servants brought robes and as healers examined the thin cut on Elara's throat. He studied every person in the room as though they were actors performing an elaborate deception. Then he asked for proof. They showed him the marriage records, the royal seals, paintings of their coronation, letters written in his own hand, a portrait of Elara and Alaric standing beneath the moonlit trees of Thornmere, his hand resting over hers while Nox sat at their feet. Alaric examined it all. "I believe these objects are real," he said at last. Hope stirred inside her. Then he looked at Elara. "But I feel nothing for her." That was the first morning. By sunset, he had begun to believe. By midnight, he had forgotten again. The second morning, he locked her in the tower. The third, he accused her of using witchcraft to control the court. The fourth, he ordered every servant in the palace questioned. The fifth, he placed chains around her wrists. Each day, Elara told him their story. She told him how they had met during a winter hunt, when he had been injured by a silver trap. She had found him bleeding beneath the snow, and cut him free before his enemies arrived. She told him how Nox had chosen her before Alaric had. The wolf had lowered his head into her lap and refused to leave. She told him of the rebellion, the siege, their wedding beneath a sky full of falling stars. She showed him the place on her shoulder where his mate mark rested, pale silver against her skin. Every day, disbelief became curiosity. Curiosity became trust. Trust became desire. And each night, just before midnight, Alaric held her as though sheer strength could anchor memory inside his bones. "I will remember," he promised. He never did. Weeks passed. Elara began leaving letters beside the bed. The first one was simple. "My name is Elara. I am your wife. You are safe with me." The second included details only he would know. "You hate figs. You sleep on your left side when you are worried. The scar on your hand came from the night you climbed the eastern wall because the gates were locked, and you were too proud to call for help." He smiled when he read that one. It was the first time she had seen him smile since the curse began. By the 10th morning, the chamber was filled with letters. Some were hers. Others were his. Alaric began writing to himself before midnight. "Do not hurt her. She is telling the truth. Nox trusts her. You trust Nox. By the 15th night, the message had changed. You love her, even when you do not remember why. That letter lasted only until dawn. When Alaric woke, the words had turned black. The parchment curled at the edges. Dark veins spread across the ink like rot. He touched it, and pain tore through him. His scream shook the windows. Elara ran to him, but the moment her hands touched his face, his eyes filled with crimson light. He threw her across the chamber. She struck the wall and fell. Nox lunged between them, snarling. Alaric collapsed to his knees, clutching his skull. "Get out," he gasped. Elara crawled toward him. "Alaric, get out." The windows shattered. Every candle in the room died at once. Later, Malrek found traces of old blood magic in the burnt letter. The royal council assembled before noon. Elara sat beside Alaric in the throne room, though he had placed 3 feet of empty space between them. Malrek stood before the throne holding the ruined parchment with gloved fingers. "This is no ordinary memory spell," he said. "It is a devouring curse." Captain Rowan frowned. "What does it devour?" Malrek looked at Elara. "Attachment." The word seemed to echo through the chamber. Alaric's hands tightened around the arms of his throne. "Explain." "The curse does not merely erase Her Majesty from your mind. It feeds upon every attempt to restore your bond. Each recovered emotion strengthens it." Elara felt cold. "So every time he begins to remember me, he gives the curse more power." Alaric rose. "Then remove it." Malrek lowered his gaze. "I cannot." The king descended from the throne. "You are the keeper of royal magic. I can contain it, slow it, study it. But this spell is older than the crown itself." Alaric grabbed Malrek by the throat. The guard stepped forward, then froze. Nox stood near Elara, watching silently. "Find a way," Alaric said, "or I will find another keeper." Malrek did not struggle. "There may be one path." Elara stood. "What path?" "A blood moon will rise in 30 nights. Until then, the curse is incomplete. On that night, it will seal permanently." "What happens when it seals?" Rowan asked. Malrek looked at the king. "He will not only forget the queen." No one moved. "He will lose the ability to recognize love itself." Alaric released him. Malrek staggered back, one hand touching his bruised throat. Elara forced herself to speak. "How do we stop it?" "There are records beneath the western crypts. I must study them." "Then do it." Malrek bowed. But as he turned away, Elara noticed something strange. He was not afraid. A man who had just been threatened by the Alpha King should have shown fear. Instead, Malrek looked almost satisfied. That night, Alaric refused to sleep. He walked the chamber until dawn, drinking bitter blackroot tea and cutting his palm whenever his eyes began to close. Elara stayed with him. "You cannot fight sleep forever," she said. "I can fight longer than the curse expects." Blood ran from his hand. She reached for it. He pulled away, not because he feared her, because he feared what touching her might awaken. "Elara," he said quietly, "what was I like before this?" She swallowed. "You were arrogant." His mouth almost curved. "Good. Impatient. Reckless. Terrible at apologizing." "That sounds believable." "You also opened the palace gates during the famine even when the council warned you against it." His expression changed. "You slept beside wounded soldiers after the border war. You carried a dying servant's child through a snowstorm because the healers could not reach the village." He looked toward the window. "And with you?" Elara's voice softened. "You were gentle." He flinched as though the word hurt. "No one has ever called me that." "I did." "Did I believe you?" "Never." A silence passed between them. Then Alaric held out his wounded hand. She wrapped it carefully. He watched her fingers move over his skin. "Do I fall in love with you every day?" Her breath caught. "Yes." "How long does it take?" "Sometimes until evening." "And today?" She looked into his eyes. "Today you are still deciding." He leaned closer. The room seemed to disappear around them. "What usually convinces me?" "Nox." At the sound of his name, the black wolf raised his head. Alaric glanced at him. Nox stood, crossed the room, and rested his massive head against Elara's knee. The king stared. "He has never trusted anyone but me." "I know." Something raw flickered across Alaric's face. He touched her cheek. Pain struck him instantly. His body locked. Red light burned beneath his skin. Elara caught him as he fell. "No," he gasped. "Do not." Black veins spread from his wrist toward his heart. Nox howled. Elara screamed for the healers. Alaric convulsed in her arms, blood darkening his lips. Then his hand closed around her throat. His eyes no longer looked human. "Elara," he choked, fighting himself. "Run." She did not. She held his face and forced him to look at her. I will not leave you. His fingers tightened. You have to. I will not. The doors flew open. Malrek entered, raised one hand, and spoke a word in an ancient language. Alaric collapsed. The red light vanished. For several minutes no one spoke. Elara knelt beside her unconscious husband, her hands shaking. Malrek looked down at them. This is what I feared. What? The curse is accelerating. He turned toward the windows, where the first pale hint of dawn touched the horizon. You cannot keep reminding him. Elara stared at Alaric. I cannot let him wake alone. If he falls in love with you again, the next attack may kill him. The words hollowed her out. What are you saying? Malrek faced her. You must become someone his heart rejects. Elara's lips parted. He will not reject me. Then teach him. The chamber became unbearably still. Malrek stepped closer. Give him reasons not to trust you. Reasons not to touch you. Reasons to keep you far from his heart. Elara looked at the letters scattered across the floor. All the promises. All the reminders. All the desperate proof that she had been loved. You want me to make him hate me. I want you to keep him alive. Alaric stirred weakly. His eyes opened. For one fragile moment, he recognized her. Elara? She bent over him. I am here. He smiled. Then dawn crossed his face. The recognition vanished. His expression hardened. He saw her hands on his body and reached for a blade that was no longer there. Get away from me. Elara slowly stood. Her heart screamed at her to explain, to show him the rings, the letters, the scars. Instead, she looked down at the man she loved and made the first decision that would destroy them both. You are right, she said. Alaric froze. Elara removed her wedding ring. I should never have been in your bed. The lie tasted like blood. Nox growled in confusion. Alaric stared at the ring in her palm. Who are you? She closed her fingers around it. Someone you should have learned to hate a long time ago. Then she walked from the chamber before he could see her cry. That morning, Queen Elara burned every letter that had ever told the king to love her. That night, she began writing new ones. The first said, Do not trust the woman who calls herself your queen. And as the ink dried beneath her trembling hand, one question tormented her more than the curse itself. If saving the person you loved required you to become the villain in his eyes, would you have the strength to do it? The next morning, Alaric found the warning beneath his pillow. Do not trust the woman who calls herself your queen. The words were written in Elara's hand. He knew that because the servants had shown him samples from royal decrees, private letters, and marriage records. Her script was elegant, measured, and unmistakable. But the warning beneath his pillow had been written with enough pressure to tear the parchment. He read it 3 times. Then he summoned the guards. By the time Elara entered the throne room, Alaric was already seated beneath the black gold crown of Vane. Captain Rowan stood at his right. Lord Malrek waited below the steps, holding the letter. Nox lay near the throne, but his silver eyes remained fixed on Elara. Alaric did not ask her to approach. You wrote this. It was not a question. Elara looked at the parchment. Yes. Why? Because I love you. Because remembering me is killing you. Because I would rather watch you despise me than watch you die in my arms. She folded her hands before her. Because you should know the truth. Alaric leaned forward. What truth? Elara felt Malrek watching her. Not with concern. With expectation. She had spent the entire night deciding how much pain she could survive. The answer, she had learned, was more than she had imagined. I did not marry you for love. Nox lifted his head. Captain Rowan's expression changed. Alaric remained still. Then why? The crown. The lie struck the throne room like a blade. A murmur moved through the gathered counselors. Elara continued, before courage abandoned her. My family had lost its lands. My name had no power. You were wounded, grieving, and desperate for loyalty. Alaric's eyes narrowed. And you used that? Yes. Nox rose. A low growl rolled from his chest. Elara did not look at him. She could not. Alaric descended one step from the throne. Yesterday, everyone in this palace swore you had risked your life for me. I risked my life for the position beside you. Captain Rowan stepped forward. That is not true. Elara turned toward him. Be silent. Rowan stared at her as though she had struck him. He had guarded her since the rebellion. He had carried her through the eastern gate when an arrow pierced her side. He knew every version of the woman she was pretending not to be. Alaric noticed. You defend her strongly. She saved your life more times than I can count. Elara's voice hardened. Because his life became my power. Nox barked sharply. The sound echoed through the hall. Alaric looked down at the wolf. Nox moved away from the throne and stood beside Elara. The king's face darkened. Go back. Nox did not obey. Back. The wolf remained pressed against Elara's leg. Alaric's jaw tightened. You told me he trusts no one but me. Elara forced herself to meet his gaze. Perhaps you never understood him as well as you believed. Pain flashed across Alaric's face. Small. Nearly invisible. But she saw it. And hated herself for causing it. Alaric finally spoke. Your Majesty, perhaps the queen should be confined until her intentions are understood. Nox bared his teeth. Alaric studied Elara for a long moment. Then he said, No. Malrek's expression flickered. No? If she wanted me dead, I have apparently given her years to accomplish it. He approached her until only a few feet separated them. What do you want now? Elara had prepared the answer. The eastern provinces. Rowan swore under his breath. Alaric's gaze sharpened. You want me to grant you land? I want control of the army stationed there. Why? So that when your mind fails completely, I will not be left powerless. The council erupted. Alaric silenced them with one raised hand. His attention never left her. You expect me to reward your confession. I expect you to behave like the man you were before the curse. And what man was that? Practical. The word cut him more deeply than hatred would have. Alaric stepped close enough that she could feel the heat of him. For one unbearable instant, she remembered how he used to stand this way before kissing her. Leave, he said. Elara did. Nox followed. Alaric ordered the wolf back 3 times. Nox ignored him every time. That evening, a second letter appeared on the king's desk. She has been moving gold from the royal vaults. It was true. Technically, Elara had transferred money to villages destroyed during the winter storms. Alaric had approved it before the curse began, but the authorization carried only his private seal. She removed the seal from the records. By dawn, it looked like theft. Alaric summoned the treasurer. The missing gold was confirmed. He summoned Elara. She confessed. On the 3rd day, he discovered coded messages between Elara and northern nobles. The messages were real. They concerned food routes and border defenses. Elara replaced several pages. Now they suggested rebellion. On the 4th day, a hidden blade was found beneath Alaric's throne. It belonged to Elara. She had used it during the siege of Thornmere to cut him free from chains. Now she told him she had placed it there to study how closely the guards watched him. On the 5th day, Alaric ordered her chambers searched. The guards found poison. Elara had kept it for years. Not to kill the king. To kill herself, if Malrek's enemies ever captured her and tried to use her against Alaric. But she did not explain that. Each morning, she gave him another reason. Each evening, he looked at her with less warmth. And each night, the curse weakened. The black veins beneath his skin faded. The headaches became less severe. He no longer collapsed when she entered a room. The plan was working. That knowledge should have comforted her. Instead, it felt like watching a bridge burn while standing on the wrong side. Alaric became colder. He stopped asking about their past. He stopped reading the old records. He removed her portrait from the royal chamber. He moved into the northern tower and posted guards outside his doors. Yet he did not imprison her. He watched her. Every meal, every council session, every walk through the courtyard. As though some part of him still searched for a contradiction, Elara gave him none, until the night he found her crying. She had gone to the old chapel after midnight, believing everyone asleep. The chapel had been abandoned since the rebellion. Dust covered the pews. Moonlight spilled through the broken roof. At the altar rested a small wooden box. Inside were the pieces of every letter she had burned. She had saved the ashes. It was foolish, dangerous, but she could not bear to let their words disappear completely. She knelt before the box with her wedding ring in her palm. You would hate me for this, she whispered. A voice answered from the shadows. I already do. Elara turned. Alaric stood beneath the ruined archway. He wore no crown, no sword, only a dark coat thrown hastily over his clothes. Nox stood behind him. The wolf had led him there. Elara closed her fingers around the ring. How long have you been watching? Long enough. His gaze moved to the box. What is inside? Nothing. Alaric crossed the chapel. Open it. No. He stopped. That single refusal seemed to surprise him more than all her confessions. You have admitted to treason, theft, and poison. But you protect a box of ash. It has no value. Then open it. Elara rose. Go back to the palace. His expression hardened. You do not command me. Then consider it advice. He reached for the box. She moved first. Their hands collided. Pain flashed through Alaric. Not the violent seizure of before. A brief pulse. A tremor. He pulled back. Elara saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of her. Fear of remembering. Alaric looked at his hand. What was that? Nothing. You always say that when something matters. He reached again. Elara stepped between him and the altar. Do not. Why? Because you came here looking for proof that I am lying. And am I wrong? Yes. The answer escaped before she could stop it. They froze. Alaric's eyes locked onto hers. Elara felt the entire plan crack beneath one careless word. You are wrong, she said more quietly, forcing coldness into her voice. There is no mystery here. I am exactly what I told you. Then why are you crying? She had no answer. Alaric lifted one hand. For a moment, she thought he would touch her face. Instead, he took the wooden box. Elara did not stop him. He opened it. Gray ashes filled the bottom. Among them lay one fragment of parchment that the flames had failed to consume. Alaric lifted it. Only 7 words remained. You love her, even when you forget. His breathing changed. Elara reached for the fragment. He stepped away. Who wrote this? She said nothing. Was it you? No. He stared at the handwriting. His handwriting. Recognition did not appear in his face, but instinct did. A man knows the shape of his own secrets even when the meaning has been stolen. I wrote this. Yes. When? Before. Before what? Before you became wise enough to hate me. His gaze snapped toward her. You burned it. Yes. Why keep the ashes? Elara's throat tightened. Because I enjoy collecting evidence of my victories. The cruelty sounded thin. Alaric heard it. He moved closer. You are a terrible liar. Her heart stopped. I have lied successfully to an entire kingdom. Not to me. You believe every accusation I give you. No. The word was quiet. Certain. Elara stared at him. Alaric held the fragment between them. I believe the evidence. I believe the money moved. I believe messages were altered. I believe poison was found in your room. Then what remains unclear? You. Moonlight crossed his face. Every fact says you are guilty. But every person who has known you looks at you as though they are grieving. Elara's eyes burned. People grieve illusions. Nox sleeps outside your door. He is an animal. He is my wolf. Then control him. The insult landed. Alaric stepped closer. Nox remembers something I do not. Elara looked away. He caught her wrist. The mate bond flared. A silver pulse passed between them. Alaric gasped. For one heartbeat, the chapel vanished from his eyes. He saw snow. Blood. A young woman kneeling over him beneath a white sky. Her hands pressing against his wound. Her voice saying, "Stay with me." Then the vision shattered. Alaric released her as though burned. Elara backed away. What did I see? Nothing real. You were there. No. You were holding me. A memory created by the curse. You told me the curse erases memories. I lied. The answer came too quickly. Alaric stared at her. Then he laughed once. It was a broken sound. Of course you did. He looked down at the parchment. Tell me one true thing. Elara remained silent. One. She wanted to say everything. I loved you before you had a crown. I loved you when your kingdom fell. I loved you when you believed you were too damaged to be loved. I love you now, even while teaching you to despise me. Instead, she said, the blood moon rises in 23 nights. His face changed. You know about that. Yes. What happens then? You lose what remains of your mind. And you? I take what I came for. The throne. Yes. Alaric studied her. Then he tore the surviving fragment in half. Elara's composure almost broke. He saw that too. You cared about this. No. You cared more about a burnt note than your own life. It meant nothing. Then why do you look as though I have killed something? She could not answer. Alaric dropped the pieces into the ash. Whatever game you are playing, Elara, it ends before the blood moon. He turned to leave. Nox did not follow. The wolf remained beside her. Alaric stopped at the chapel entrance. Come. Nox sat down. A terrible silence stretched between king and wolf. Alaric's shoulders stiffened. Then he walked away alone. Elara sank to the floor. Nox pressed his head against her chest. This time, she did not hide her tears. The following morning, Alaric issued a royal order. Queen Elara was stripped of access to the treasury, the army, and the council archives. Her chambers were placed under guard. Her title remained. Her freedom did not. Malrek visited her before noon. You are succeeding, he said. Elara stood by the window. Am I? The king's condition has improved. He is beginning to remember. Malrek's face remained calm. What did he remember? Snow. The night we met. That is dangerous. He touched me. You must not allow it again. Elara turned. Why? You know why? No. I know what you told me. For the first time, suspicion entered her voice openly. Malrek's eyes sharpened. You think I have deceived you. I think you knew what the curse would do before you examined the first letter. A pause. Small, but enough. Elara stepped closer. You were not surprised when he forgot me. I have studied ancient curses. You were not afraid when he threatened you. I have served angry kings before, and you knew the blood moon would complete the spell. Malrek smiled faintly. Be careful, your majesty. With what? The difference between suspicion and proof. He turned toward the door. Elara spoke before he reached it. What happens if Alaric truly hates me before the blood moon? Malrek stopped. The curse starves. And then? It dies. Does it? Malrek looked over his shoulder. For the briefest moment, something old and cold looked through his eyes. Continue as instructed. Then he left. That night, Elara broke into the western crypts. The entrance lay beneath the oldest section of the palace, sealed behind a stone door bearing the crest of the first Vane king. Captain Rowan waited in the tunnel. You should not have come, Elara whispered. You should not have asked. I did not. Nox did. The black wolf emerged from the darkness behind him. Elara looked at the animal. You led him? Nox blinked. Rowan held up a lantern. The records Malrek mentioned are down here. You searched them? I tried. Half are written in the old tongue. I can read it. Rovan stadet at her. Since when? Since Alaric taught me. The name hurt to say. They descended together. Deep beneath the palace, they found shelves of blackened scrolls, bone tablets, and books bound in cracked gray leather. Hours passed. Then Elara found the first reference. The hollow crown. A curse, designed not to erase love, but to harvest it. She read faster. Each time the victim formed an emotional bond, the curse drew power from that bond. But hatred did not destroy the spell. Hatred completed it. Elara stopped breathing. Rowan looked over her shoulder. What does it say? Her fingers trembled against the page. When the beloved becomes the hated, the heart opens fully to the crown. Rowan's face went pale. What does that mean? It means Malrek lied. Nox growled. Elara continued reading. On the blood moon, the curse would consume Alaric's final memory of love and transfer every stolen bond to the caster. The king would survive, but empty, obedient, unable to resist the one who controlled the curse. Malrek had never wanted Alaric dead. He wanted him hollow, a weapon wearing a crown. Elara turned the page. At the bottom, written in a different hand, was one final warning. The curse can only be broken by the memory that lives outside the mind. Her gaze moved to Nox. The wolf's silver eyes glowed in the dark. Before Elara could speak, footsteps thundered in the tunnel. Royal guards surrounded them. Alaric appeared behind the soldiers. He looked at Rowan, at the forbidden records, at Elara holding a book of blood magic. His face became colder than she had ever seen it. So this is where treason hides. Elara rose. Alaric, listen to me. He drew his sword. You told me not to trust you. I was wrong. You confessed to betraying me. I lied. You gave me reasons to hate you, to save you. His expression twisted with fury. Save me from what? Elara looked toward Malrek, who stepped from the darkness behind the king. The keeper's face was calm, victorious. Elara understood at once. He had led Alaric there. Malrek raised one hand. The black symbols on the walls ignited. Nox howled. Alaric staggered as crimson light spread through his eyes. Elara, Rowan shouted. The king lifted his sword. For 1 second, his face showed confusion. Then the curse took him. He pointed the blade at the woman he had once loved more than life. Arrest the traitor. As the guards closed around her, Elara realized the truth too late. She had spent weeks teaching Alaric to hate her. Now Malrek was ready to use that hatred to destroy him. And there were only 22 nights left before the blood moon. The guards chained Elara before Alaric's eyes. He did not look away. Iron closed around her wrists. Silver runes ignited across the shackles, suppressing every trace of mate magic in her blood. Nox lunged. The first guard barely raised his spear in time. The wolf struck him hard enough to send him across the crypt floor. Rowan moved to Elara's side, drawing his sword, but 6 soldiers surrounded him. Stand down, Alaric ordered. Rowan's jaw tightened. Your Majesty, you are being controlled. Alaric turned toward him. By my own commander, perhaps? No. Then why are you standing beside a woman who confessed to treason? Because she confessed to save your life. The king's eyes flashed crimson. Malrek stepped closer to him. Do not listen. The curse has made him vulnerable to suggestion. Elara stared at the royal keeper. You told me hatred would starve the spell. Malrec's expression remained composed. Did I? Alaric looked between them. What is she talking about? Elara raised the ancient book despite the chains. The hollow crown does not die when love becomes hatred. It opens. Malrec lifted one hand. The book flew from her grasp. It struck the wall and burst into flames. No, Rowan shouted. The old pages blackened instantly. Malrec watched them burn. There are some texts that should remain buried. Alaric's grip tightened around his sword. You knew. Malrec faced him. I knew the queen would use forbidden magic once desperation overcame her. Elara laughed bitterly. You are still lying to him, and you are still asking him to trust you. That was the cruelest part. Malrec no longer needed to convince Alaric that Elara was guilty. She had already done it for him. Every false confession, every hidden letter, every forged act of betrayal. She had built the prison now closing around them. Alaric walked toward her. The soldiers stepped aside. He stopped close enough for her to see the faint black veins beneath his eyes. Tell me why I should believe you now. Elara's throat tightened. You should not. His expression hardened. But Nox should. At the sound of his name, the wolf moved between them. Alaric looked down at him. Nox's fur bristled, but he did not attack. Instead, he pressed his head against Alaric's chest. The king froze. Silver light pulsed beneath the wolf's fur. A memory flashed through Alaric. Snow. Blood. Elara's hands. Then another. A battlefield under a red sky. Elara standing before him with an arrow in her side, refusing to fall until the gates were closed. Another. A wedding beneath falling stars. Her laughter. Her lips against his. Her voice whispering, I choose you, even without the crown. Alaric staggered. The sword fell from his hand. Malrec's calm vanished. Separate them. The guards rushed forward. Nox snarled. Alaric caught the wolf's fur with both hands as more memories struck him. Not full memories. Fragments. Feelings carried by scent, touch, instinct. The memory that lived outside the mind. Elara. Egaspid. She stepped toward him, but the chains pulled tight. I am here. Malrec spoke in the ancient tongue. The symbols on the crypt walls erupted. Alaric screamed. Crimson light flooded his eyes. Nox was thrown across the floor. The king collapsed to one knee. Malrec seized Alaric by the back of the neck and pressed a black sigil against his skin. You were always too much like your mother, Malrec whispered. Too willing to weaken yourself for love. Alaric looked up. My mother? Malrec smiled. Elara was not the first person erased from you. The crypt fell silent. Even the guards looked uncertain. Malrec released him and turned toward the burning remains of the book. Your mother discovered what I was building. She tried to expose me, so I removed her. Alaric's breathing stopped. You killed her. No. Malrec's voice softened with something almost resembling affection. I made the kingdom forget her. Elara remembered the hidden records. The unnamed queen. The missing years in the royal history. Malrec had tested the curse before. On Alaric's mother. You made a child forget his own mother, Elara said. He remembered enough to remain difficult. Malrec looked at Nox. The wolves always remember. Nox rose unsteadily. Blood darkened the fur near his shoulder. Alaric saw it. Something inside him broke through the curse. Not memory. Choice. He stood. Malrec spoke another command, but Alaric remained upright. The king's body shook with the effort of resisting. You said love made kings weak, Alaric said. It does. No. He looked at Elara. I forgot her every morning. His voice grew stronger, and somehow I chose her again every day. Malrec's eyes narrowed. That was the spell feeding. That was me. Alaric reached for the black gold crown. He tore it from his head. The crypt trembled. Malrec stared. What are you doing? What I should have done before. Alaric threw the crown into the fire. The metal did not melt. It screamed. A sound like 1,000 voices filled the chamber. Black smoke poured from the crown and twisted into faces. Lost queens. Forgotten children. Soldiers who had loved too deeply. Kings hollowed into obedient rulers. Malrec stepped back. You fool. The crown binds the realm. No, Alaric said. It binds me to you. He drove his sword through it. The crown split. The explosion hurled everyone to the ground. Elara struck the stone hard. The chains around her wrists cracked. Nox rose first. Silver fire moved across his body. He stood larger now, his eyes blazing like twin moons. Malrec lifted both hands, summoning a wall of black flame. Nox charged through it. The fire clung to his fur but did not burn him. He struck Malrec in the chest and pinned him against the altar. Malrec screamed a command. Nox's body convulsed. Elara broke one shackle against the stone. Rowan cut through the other. "Get to the king," he said. Alaric lay near the shattered crown. The black veins had spread across his throat. Elara reached him and placed both hands against his face. His eyes opened. Empty again. He grabbed her wrist. "Who are you?" The words nearly destroyed her. Not after all of this. Not again. She looked at Malrek struggling beneath Nox. The blood moon was still weeks away, yet the broken crown had forced the curse into its final stage. They had minutes. Perhaps less. Elara remembered the last line in the book. The curse can only be broken by the memory that lives outside the mind. "Nox," she shouted. The wolf looked toward her. Malrek drove a blade into his side. Nox roared, but did not release him. "Elara," Rowan yelled. "What do you need?" "The bond." She placed Alaric's hand against Nox's fur and pressed her own hand over his. The three of them connected. Queen, king, Voif. Silver light exploded through the crypt. Alaric saw everything, not as memories stored in his mind, as memories carried by Nox. The night Elara found him in the snow. Nox had watched from the trees. The first time Alaric laughed after his father's death, Nox had lain beside them. The night Alaric proposed with no witnesses, no crown, and no speech, because he had forgotten every word he planned to say. Nox remembered. The rebellion, the wedding, the quiet mornings, the arguments, the nights Elara sat awake while Alaric slept. The first morning he forgot her. Nox remembered her fear. The second morning, the chains, the letters, the lies, the nights she cried where Alaric could not see. The wolf had seen everything. Then came the memory Alaric had written for himself before the curse consumed it. He stood in the royal chamber, blood on his lips, knowing dawn would erase her again. He wrote, "If she ever gives you reasons to hate her, it means she has chosen to save you again." The memory struck Alaric like lightning. He turned toward Elara. Recognition returned. Not slowly. Completely. Elara. Her face crumpled. Yes. He pulled her into his arms. The mate bond erupted in silver gold light. Malrek screamed. The black magic began tearing away from Alaric's body, flowing backward through the broken crown toward its creator. "No," Malrek shouted. Hatred completed the path. Alaric held Elara tighter. "But I do not hate her." The crypt shook. Malrek looked at Elara. "You made him believe every lie." She faced him through tears. "I also left one truth where you could never reach it." Nox's silver eyes blazed. Malrek tried to break free. The wolf pressed him harder against the stone. All the love Malrek had harvested over decades surged back through him. Too much. Too pure. Every bond he had called weakness became a weight his hollow soul could not carry. His body cracked with black light. For the first time, fear appeared on his face. "Alaric," he pleaded, "I served your family. You erased my family. I made you strong. You made me empty." The king raised his hand. The mate bond answered. Silver fire swept across the crypt. Malrek vanished inside it. When the light faded, only ash remained. The black symbols on the walls disappeared. The shattered crown became ordinary metal. And for the first time in weeks, the silence felt peaceful. Alaric turned toward Nox. The wolf collapsed. Elara dropped beside him. The blade remained buried in his side. "No." She pressed both hands against the wound. Nox's breathing came shallow and slow. Alaric knelt across from her. "Stay with me," he whispered. The words mirrored the first thing Elara had ever said to him beneath the snow. Nox opened his eyes. Silver light moved from the wolf into their joined hands. The wound began to close. Not fully, but enough. Nox rested his head in Elara's lap and released a tired breath. Rowan laughed through tears. "He will live." Alaric looked at Elara. The joy in his face faded beneath guilt. "I remember." She touched his cheek. "All of it? Enough." He saw the bruises left by his hands. The cuts from the shackles. The exhaustion beneath her eyes. "I hurt you. The curse." "No." He shook his head. "I gave the orders. I doubted you. I let them chain you. You were fighting something you could not see. And you were fighting it alone." Elara looked down. "I thought hatred would save you. Would you have let me hate you forever? If it kept you alive?" Alaric closed his eyes. That answer wounded him more deeply than any blade. Then he removed his wedding ring. Elara's breath caught. He placed it in her palm beside hers. "I do not deserve to ask you to wear this again." She stared at the two rings. "What are you saying?" "I remember loving you." His voice broke. "But memory is not forgiveness." He bowed his head before her. "The Alpha King, the ruler who had never knelt to anyone. I will not command you to remain my queen." Elara looked at the man before her. For weeks, she had feared he would never remember her. Now he remembered, and she understood memory alone could not repair what had been broken. Trust would have to be rebuilt, choice by choice, day by day. She closed her fingers around the rings. Then do not ask me as a king. Alaric looked up. Ask me as the man I found bleeding in the snow. His eyes filled. Elara vos. Will you stay while I become worthy of you again? She did not answer immediately. Nox lifted his head from her lap and placed one paw over Alaric's knee. Elara laughed, softly. You have his support. I usually do. No. You usually imagine you do. For the first time since the curse began, Alaric smiled without pain. Elara slid her ring onto her finger. I will stay. He reached for her, then stopped, waiting. She closed the distance herself. Their foreheads touched. No curse awakened. No black veins spread. No memory vanished. When they kissed, the entire crypt filled with the howl of every royal wolf in the kingdom. By morning, the truth had begun to return. Portraits long hidden beneath spellwork revealed the face of Alaric's mother. Servants remembered songs they had not known they had forgotten. Old soldiers spoke her name, Queen Seraphine Vane, the woman Malrek had tried to erase from history. Alaric ordered her statue restored before the palace gates. He also ordered the black gold throne removed. The kingdom would no longer be ruled by a crown that demanded emptiness. In the months that followed, Alaric kept every letter Elara had written, even the cruel ones, especially the cruel ones, not as proof of betrayal, as proof of what she had been willing to sacrifice. He never asked her to destroy them. Some wounds should not be hidden. They should be remembered, so they are never repeated. Alaric did not regain every lost moment. There were mornings from their first years together that remained blank, names he could not connect to faces, private jokes that made Elara laugh while he stood confused. But he stopped fearing the gaps. He learned that love did not require a perfect record of the past. It required presence, honesty, and the courage to choose again. 1 year after the curse broke, Elara woke before dawn. Alaric stood by the window. For one terrible second, the old fear returned. He turned. His expression was unreadable. Elara sat up. Alaric? He crossed the chamber and stopped beside the bed. Then he placed a letter on her pillow. She opened it. My name is Alaric. You are Elara. You are my wife. You are safe with me. Her eyes filled. You remember? Yes. Then why write this? He knelt beside her. Because you spent so many mornings proving our love to me. He kissed her hand. I wanted you to wake once and find proof that I remember too. Nox climbed onto the bed despite Alaric's immediate objection and settled between them. Elara laughed. The king sighed. He still refuses to obey me. He remembers who truly rules the palace. Alaric looked at her. No. His voice softened. He remembers who saved us both. And perhaps that is the truth this story leaves behind. Love is not proven only by beautiful memories or easy promises. It is proven in the choices we make when trust is broken, when fear becomes louder than hope, and when walking away would hurt less than staying. Elara believed she had to become hated to save the man she loved. Alaric learned that strength did not mean living without love. It meant allowing love to change him without surrendering his will. And Nox, who remembered what every human mind had lost, proved that some bonds are written deeper than memory. So tell me this. If someone sacrificed their own place in your heart to protect your life, could you forgive the lies once you understood the love behind them? And if stories of cursed kings, forgotten queens, and true mates who choose each other against impossible odds, speak to your heart, subscribe, and stay with us for the next tale. Because sometimes the greatest love stories are not about never forgetting. They are about choosing one another again after everything has been lost.